Every founder and leader I've run across is interested in the exact same thing. It's the future. The future of things is what we're so into, right? The future of sports, the future of medicine, even the future of the future. Like, what is that? You name it, leaders just have a knack at engaging the conversations that are going to ripple out into culture years and even decades from now. They're constantly thinking about where things are going, how things can become better, or why things matter from a higher altitude. And that ability to engage with future things is what makes you a leader. At least one of them, right? Well, leaders are really future focused because they better be. I mean, it's part of the job. One of the most helpful leadership lessons I've ever received comes from Jesus. He's the best leader, you know, and he's the one who said very matter-of-factly, "I go to prepare a place for you." Now, this is amazing. This is a very underrated leadership insight for any founder and any leader who cares about the future, because he is modeling one of the most essential leadership attributes, that willingness to be future focused no matter what, to ensure and secure a hopeful future for those that you're leading. This is a leadership move. You get away to focus on preparing a hopeful future for your team or your community. And this is a twofold commitment. See, in this paradigm, the leader is constantly commuting between the current team and the future team, the current organization and the future organization, between the normal mode of things and between the next phase in that culture. This insight has shaped my scorecard in leadership profoundly. Being present, being prepared. It really is that simple, and yet that's a lot to take on when you really unpack it. On one side, we're making a personal effort to be more responsive to the needs of those around us. Plus, it's just good and important to practice proximity while we enjoy the journey together with others. On the other side, we're privately committing ourselves to be responsible for future developments. Some of the investments are going to turn into happy announcements for everyone to share later on, and then others are never going to get talked about because they don't need to be. In fairness, this back and forth approach may seem like it would make you dizzy and disoriented as a directional leader, but I assure you that's not the motivation. Now, it might be the starting point of where you are, because when I coach founders and leaders, it's very common for people who are busier than most to feel this way. And it's simply because you are context switching constantly. This creates that eternal traveler syndrome, leaving no time for margin, replenishment, or the thing we're all into, the future. Actually, this two-part approach to leadership is the best way that I can articulate a much more grounded and centered lifestyle. Instead of this, constant frenetic movement, this anxious energy, picture a steady tree by a beautiful river that's rooted and reaching at the same time. That's what this is. Remaining present on the ground level while reaching for fruitfulness on the higher level. I began to shape this framework maybe in like 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. And you can imagine how much this philosophy of sorts has grown since then. One really valuable expansion to this leadership framework are going to be these two phrases that I'm going to introduce here. These two phrases I'm about to share are weighty and worthy goals for any leader at any stage. In fact, these two phrases are going to frame up the two mission critical components that I believe make pioneering leadership possible. Number one is leadership presence, and number two is leadership preparedness. Again, they stem from the values of being present and being prepared, but now they're going to go further and actually embody the robust strategies when you are actually pioneering in leadership. You're taking on something new and needed. You're willing to go through uncharted territory in order to safely navigate others into their hopeful future. Let's start with leadership presence. This is massive. The question is, how much space can you fill? Now, this is both practical and profound, but go with me. What effect does your leadership presence have on a room? In other words, when you walk into a space, what happens? What shifts? What's possible? Do people feel more relaxed and reassured? Or do they get pensive and walled up and guarded? Or do people take the lead? Or do they shrink back expecting you to take the lead? See, leadership presence is both a skill and a gift. It's not just talking. It's not just charisma. And I could talk about this more and more, but for now it's important to realize that leadership presence isn't the same as your ego. In fact, when leadership presence is established, or when a clear leadership signal is being daily sent and received, then what happens is amazing. Other leaders start emerging, and that's what you want. Eventually, that's how leadership presence fills a space, fills not just a room, but maybe even an entire organization, maybe a region, maybe even more. So eventually, leadership presence matures and multiplies on the team, which gives you more margin to focus on the other dynamic in pioneering leadership, which is leadership preparedness. Now, the reality is most leaders are promoted into positions they're not prepared for. And that's okay for a while, but it's a real liability if the leader isn't capable of being a strength in difficult times. Leadership preparedness is the theme of this podcast. I grew up learning about leadership from many of the greats, but I felt that this aspect was missing or lacking altogether. Leadership requires preparation. It's not just about your presence, which could be translated as your charisma, or even your ability to take charge. No, one of the kindest things any leader can do for others is get prepared. That may look like preparing the next phase in advance, or preparing the team for what's coming next, or preparing future leaders to go further. The one thing I'll admit to you here is that leadership preparedness is always unfinished business. The more I've tried to quantify this, the more discouraged or just frustrated I've gotten. It's tempting to feel incompetent when you hyper-focus on all the things that don't feel ready or good enough or operational yet. But that's not the point. This is a best practice for life, getting prepared. Never settle where you are. Never be described as complacent. Instead, go for competence. That journey will make you more confident, and better than that, the real reward is giving confidence to those you're leading. Leadership preparedness looks a little different for each context based on what's going on in your field. For example, I'm thankful that I'm not preparing my house for a winter storm right now. So that's just an example to say your industry will bring a unique mix of elements to think through and to prepare for. What I have found is that most founders and leaders don't think about the terrain they're going into at all. And this brings us back to what every leader is interested in. It makes me start wondering why. Are we so interested in the future because we are procrastinating and we are bracing up for what we need to know to get through it? Or are we focused on making incremental yet intentional investments towards the future because we know the future is our focus? That's what pioneers do day in and day out. They are constantly expanding their working territory. And that's what you want in the future. You do not want to have your back up against the wall without any options, without any community, and without any wisdom. Instead, get rid of the counterfeit of just thinking, talking futuristically. And we need to do the real work of getting future ready. So leverage the time you get this week to work on your leadership capacity, because that's going to stick with you. That's going to help in ways you can't even anticipate yet. And when you grow your leadership capacity, then you're going to have more to give to the people that count on you. If your industry goes through a massive disruption, everything is going to come down to the leadership capacity that you've been developing in yourself and in those around you. I mean, it doesn't matter what systems and strategies you had for, blue skies. When you are going through compound difficulty, the only thing you can fall back on is your leadership. And you're going to see what kind of leadership you really have in those times. In addition, if your organization comes across a massive opportunity, that's like a good thing. You're going to have to be able to rush into that full force without hesitation. And the only way you can do that is with a prepared team of leaders as well. Either way, your leadership capacity and your leadership culture is the deciding factor when it comes to the future of everything that's going to be happening in your field. So here are 3 ways to turn your interest in the future into real future-ready investments. Number 1, use your leadership presence to grow a future-present culture. A culture that is anticipating the emerging future that's already present. Number 2, use your leadership preparedness to build a future-proof community, a group of competent, confident people that are going to pull together instead of pull apart when and where it matters most. And number 3, never assume the future. That's why you have to approach today with future focus. Now, the irony of my journey is that I care a lot about the state of leadership because it's going to matter more and more in the future. However, I've had to unlearn plenty of leadership paradigms in order to unleash the pioneering edge. So, to sum it up, leadership is a function that needs to be realized and then released for the sake of the future. Like you, I'm really passionate about pioneering the future of multiple fields. I may not get to personally build out every stage in every field that I care about, but I do believe serving the pioneers in their leadership journey is one of the ways that I can practically sow into these multiple fields and our shared hopeful future. If you're a pioneer at heart like me, I want to encourage you. We need your dreams. We need that sense of drive, And we even need your rough drafts. Keep going, okay? If you're a founder or leader, I'm here to pioneer with you. Support this podcast. Prepare to go there. Join my next event training, the Prepared Leaders Challenge, and ask a question about your leadership context or about executive coaching with me by going to peterburchfield.com. Remember, the future has so many fields waiting for you, so prepare to go there.